Hello and welcome to this Londonderry Bands Forum podcast for Good Relations Week. Today I'm joined by Jim Roddy from City Centre Initiative here in Londonderry. He is one of the prominent businessmen in the city and got involved in the parading dispute, which has now led to some of the most peaceful parading here in Northern Ireland. What was your experience like then of parading and banding and so on growing up, and what was your sort of opinion on it?
Look, again, what was your opinion on anything during the Troubles? You know, I was born in Derry in 1960, so 1968 was the Civil Rights stuff, 1969 was the Apprentice Boys Parade and the Battle of the Bogside. The troops came on the street, I lived on the Bogside. You know, I would have had a very jaundiced view of policing, of army, of parading. It would have been obviously my view from my lived experience, and it would have been a fairly one-sided view, and that's probably strange for me and for my family. My dad worked in Seagull all his life, Everton Barracks, so you know we wouldn't have been attending Remembrance Sunday would have been a normal thing for my family, for me. Especially with my dad and my mummy. They met during the war. They both worked in the War Office in London, and they ended up coming home and getting married. And my dad had continued with the MOD all his life. So my family upbringing, family background certainly wouldn't have been in any way, what would you say, moulded against the community or moulded against society. My formative years, my very early years, I spent a lot of time over my dad's work in Everton Barracks. When the army first came in, the helicopters were landing and everything else is brilliant, it's great, and all the rest. But then things turned very dark and things got very difficult and very nasty. And my lived experience of soldiers in the street when I was going to and from school and witnessing Bloody Sunday and things like that there, and obviously I had a very dim view of authority at that stage. I was lucky at 16 that I left Derry and I went into work in the post office as a postal officer. I think my mum and dad were over the moon I left Derry because they were fearful of where my thoughts were and where I might end up. You know, and for many people around me, you know, either ended up in prison, ended up getting involved in stuff you shouldn't have, didn't want to, or ended up dead. You know, and they seen that as maybe a roadmap for me. I hated school. I went to St Colum's, hated it. Ended up in St Peter's and I loved it. You know, at Christian Broad School. I'd done my exams, but on my last year at school, there was a careers fair, and from the post office up and I went, this is for me. So I applied to all the head post offices in the UK. There was regional heads all around, and in the Midlands they had job opportunities. In Stoke-on-Trent was it. I'd done the exam here, done in the post office around the corner here, and done the interview here. And they gave me the opportunity, and as a young 16-year-old I sailed off over in the Liverpool overnight boat to Liverpool and got down to Nuneaton and trained in Nuneaton to become a postal officer. But I was there for 9 months. When I was away, my daddy took very ill, and I thought I was a big man, knew the world as a 16-year-old, but I wasn't. I was still very young, still very, very homesick and all the rest of it. And my daddy took sick. I asked for a transfer home. They told me it would take 2 years and just said, I'm sorry, I can't, I need to go home. And I came home, very lucky, I got into the civil service, and then I joined the fire service as an 18-year-old and spent 20 years as a firefighter. And I became of age when I joined the fire service. I got to know what the world was really about, what life was really about, what people from all backgrounds were really about, because I worked with everybody. And one of the things I learned very quickly in the fire brigade is the work that we've done. You didn't have to be from one community to the other. You didn't have to agree with somebody, or you know your politics could have been so different. But see, when you go out and shout, see the boy who was beside you, or whoever I was beside, we all had each other's backs at all time. We all would give our lives for each other, and that camaraderie was a great experience, and it made you look upon it, all your colleagues and everybody else as one team, as one, you know, who all wanted the same outcome. And I've loved my life like that ever since. So as an 18-year-old, my life totally transformed, and I learned everything I needed to learn about life in the fire brigade. So growing up was probably very strange and probably very difficult and probably very murky and muddy, as it would have been for a lot of young people at my age. But I really learned about life as an 18-year-old when I joined the fire brigade. I would often say that growing up in those times, we never really had a childhood. It was that bad. Like, you're a young man, Stephen. Seriously, it's really hard to describe what it was like, how bad it was. It was that bad. Like, there was daily bombings, daily gun battles. You know, can you imagine now? If anything happened in the city and there was a bomb, like, it would be shock, horror, and we'd all be looking at each other, and you know, and there'd be fear, and there'd be anger, there'd be all those emotions. We lived through it all the time. It was happening all the time, all around us. It was natural almost, which is really scary. But you know, looking back at it now, it left for a very clouded, very jaundiced way of looking at life, and the fire brigade changed all that. So I learned an awful lot from when I was 18 on, and in working with people and treating people with respect, and not pigeonholing people, not actually making your mind up about someone just because of what you conceive or what you perceive. It's getting to know the person that makes all the difference in the world. So realistically, that's what sort of helped me do the work maybe I do now. I don't go with any preconceived ideas. I don't have any preconceived outcomes and things. I know people want different things, and people have different needs and different aspirations. And I guess what I have to try and do is respect all of those, you know, and not make my mind up as to what's right or what's wrong.
Yeah, that was your sort of foundation in the 90s and so on, when the Apprentice Boys and the Bogside Residents and all started talking. What was your initial thoughts of that, and then how did you become involved in that sort of?
Well, my initial thoughts on that was talking solves everything. Getting to know somebody solves everything. It's really difficult if you don't know somebody. You know, I meet some great people, and see a lot of the great people I meet, they mightn't all be people of high office or stature. They might be just the person who's sitting across the street having an ice cream, or the person who I meet when I'm going to a bar, or the person who I meet when I go down and sit at the football match, or go to the rugby club, or walk about the city centre or whatever. But you know, there's lots of different needs that people have. You talk about our city centre, everybody thinks, right, shops. It's not just about shops. There's daytime economy, there's nighttime economy, there's the churches, there's the community and voluntary sector, there's all different types of businesses that there are. You know, it's multifaceted. So I know that in society we're dealing with lots of different issues, and people have different needs. And one of those needs was to understand each other when it comes to parading, and what that means, and what the culture of parading was all about. So when I was Brendan Dudley and Garvin, and people like Michael Doherty from PRJ, was speaking with people like Billy and Roy Hay and all the others, and Donovan and all those got involved then, I thought to myself, thank God people are speaking, because all you got was standoffs about, is the parade happening, is it not happening, you know, are the army and the police going to you know, swamp the streets, stop the parade, will they stop the parade, will there be violence, will the parade goes ahead, will there be violence, all that there. And you know, all I was doing was we were going around in circles, we were going nowhere, and people were in the middle of it all, and people were getting hurt. So once they started talking, it was brilliant. When they came to an accommodation, even better, Stephen. Now, I would know there were people still very suspicious of all that accommodation. Some of them suspicions are probably, you know, still there with people, but they actually realised that agreement was come to was just unbelievable. Now, my involvement came much later when I took on this role, but because I worked in the fire service, I had many friends across the piece. Because I worked in football, I had many friends across the piece. You know, I done an unspeakable thing in the city, and brought Lunfield to play Derry City in the Brandywell when people thought it couldn't be done, but it was done, and it was the right thing to do. I worked with the fans of Brandywell. They make sure that we take all that's sectarian or that's wrong out of football. We took the flags out of, we didn't allow national flags in the stadium, and the only time a national flag would be flown was we were representing the country in Europe. If we played in Europe, you had to fly the flag of your country. You know, I remember going through that with David Crawford, God rest him, the chairman of Linfield, and he was saying, but all our fans have Union Jacks with Linfield in the middle and everything else. And I says, David, I know, and I'm not being disrespectful, but we just have a policy. So, and working with people and talking about those things, it's, people sometimes think these things are all too difficult to talk about. They're not. There's nothing too difficult to talk about. Once you talk about things, you're on the road to find the solution. So talking about these things helped dramatically. So I had many friends across the piece and across the divide that when I became involved in parading in 2009 here, in my job here, I became directly involved. I probably was indirectly involved in the background with other stakeholders, helping people, encouraging people, but more directly involved. You know, it was still difficult. 2009, we still had issues. We still had violence associated with parades. We still had the split barriers. We still had a lot of traders who were angry about the parade taking place. But there's one thing that sticks out in my mind, and I don't know if Billy will ever remember this. I asked Billy one day, and it was sheer ignorance, and it wasn't in any way to be disrespectful. What's the actual excitement or buzz of marching around all day long? You know, for maybe 3 or 4 hours, especially walking around the city in Derry Day. And Billy said something back to me that stuck with me to this day. He was saying, well, what's the buzz of you going and sitting in the Brandywell watching Derry City play? And that just done something in my head. See, because you maybe just don't understand what a culture is. It doesn't mean to say it's right or wrong. You shouldn't have any preconceived ideas. And like, football's my life. I love football in all aspects. Whoever's playing and go and watch that. You know, but I've got to know some great people in the Apprentice Boys, some great people in the Orange Order. That's, well, I know some of the Black Perseverance, but don't be dealing with them as much as I deal with the Orange Order or the Apprentice Boys. And I've actually sat through some great discussions, especially with some of the Orange Lodges in Belfast and the work I've done up there. And they sat and talked about their Orangism and what it means to them, and their membership of the Orange Order, and been brought up as a young boy. They follow their parents, and I've got great respect for the culture, but I would never have experienced that until I got speaking to the people who actually celebrate their culture in that way and open my mind to understanding it. And I wished a lot more people could do that.
See, when I was before you ever got involved in it, did you think it was sort of unfair? Parades were being sort of targeted, especially maybe by the media, especially, and political opponents. And did you think that?
You see, again, before you get to know people and talk to people and understand, it's you can have ideas about it, but it's unfair to impose those thoughts and ideas as reality. I probably still had the impression that Apprentice Boys were slightly different, and that their headquarters were inside the walled city. The story about the Apprentice Boys is about this city, it's about the walled city. Why all the other parades had to take place when trading wasn't working properly and people were so angry and there was so much violence. I probably had I did have a preconceived idea about parading then, but I would open it, but now that was wrong. People were coming here to parade, and there'd have been some would have come when I beat the drum a wee bit harder, because they probably had their backs up, because they knew that they were facing people here who were angry at them and there may have been violence. But there were some here who were here to attack the paraders as well, and that was wrong. So I sort of probably had in my mind, I understood some of the anger against the parades taking place, but it would have been wrong for me to have imposed that thought on anybody else, and I never would have got involved in imposing that thought on anybody else. But the more and more I spoke to members of the Apprentice Boys, the more and more I spoke to members of the Orange Order, the more and more I lost all those thoughts, the more and more I understood what the culture of parading was about. I understood the role of the Orange Order and what they've done. I actually get 100% the cultural celebration, and I think it's enriching, and that's helped me, because when I talk to people about what a city centre is more than just about shops. It's about all aspects of life. It's about people wanting to come and share space, and that space can be cultural. It can be in different parts of the economy. It can be social. It can be based on tourism. It can be based on education. It can be based on church things. So a city centre has to represent all those things. So a city centre is not just owned by traders. It's owned by everybody, and that's helped me in all my discussions with traders as well, because what works for some traders might not work for other traders. What works on parading day, like all the people who come to Derry now, you take the 13th of August here in the city, Ferry Street was jammed. It was brilliant to see it. Carley Road was jammed. You see, when I first joined CCA, you wouldn't have got a centre in Ferry Street, you wouldn't have got a centre in Carley Road. People didn't really want to come from the other side. They watched the parade going through the city centre. If I understood that shops aren't doing so well here, I got that, absolutely got it. So for me, it was about, how do you change all this? And one of the things you do to change it is take the fear aspect out of it. Make sure that there's no headlines in the papers that's going, trouble's expected at tomorrow's parade. Why is trouble expected at tomorrow's parade? And I would have questioned the media quite a bit on that, and I fell out with some media outlets over that. Couldn't get their rationale. Then, why are people protesting? And I would have got a lot of things. I got quite a bit of stick about this from people who have been protesting. Why aren't the traders doing something about this? Well, what do you mean, why aren't the traders doing something about this? Stopping people celebrating their culture? Are you serious? Is that really what traders should be about? What I want to do is maximise the potential of that. And what we've got now is all our hotels are full. Yep. The bars were all full along the route. All the wee convenience stores were flying. Now, granted, do you see the people who were coming to watch the parade? They weren't coming to buy dresses or buy suits. But if they were staying over, they might have done that the day before, or they might have done it the day after. If they had a good day, they might come back and do that. You see all the people who are working in the bars and the hotels and everything else, they're earning. Where they spend their money? They're spending their money here. So it's about bringing common sense and actually welcoming the diversity of it, letting people come and enjoy your city, and hoping that a rising tide lifts all boats and people spend their money, and trading generally is good. And I think we're getting there. I don't think we're fully there yet, but I think we're getting there. And it was amazing on Derry Day. I call it Derry Day. I know we don't call it Derry Day in Derry that much, but you see in Belfast, that's all we call it. I'd be talking
outside of the city.
I'd be talking to all the ones outside the city more about it. But I was in the Diamond with an official from the Department of Foreign Affairs, and it was his first time up watching the parade. And the Diamond was very quiet. It was sad. It was very, very quiet. Sad in some ways, not sad in others. When the Diamond used to be busy, it used to be busy with green on one side and orange on the other, as we remember it, up by the side of Austin's and Richmond Centre. Yeah. And that was always quite tense, but there was no tension around, right? But it was quiet. And we need to get that better. The Diamond was empty. Bishop Street was busy, Fergus Street was busy, Carry Road, but I would love to see people at Diamond as well. So that's something we have to work on. But the parade was slow this year. I think just the heat and the gaps, and totally understandable. But it took about 3 hours to go around the Diamond this year. So Rory and myself, we went top of Fergie Gate, and we seen the buzz in Fergie Street and the buzz in Carlisle Road. Then we walked up to the Diamond, and it was quiet. We were down to the Modern Hotel, and some of the families, the Apprentice Boys, because a lot of Apprentice Boys were staying in the Modern Hotel, some of the families were about. And then we walked down towards Waterloo Street, and you see when you walk through the gate at Butcher Gate, and you walk straight into Waterloo Street, all the bars were jammed. it was a beautiful day. Everybody's sitting outside. So here you had the bands going around the cenotaph, and was a lot of them stopped their music. They played as soon as they were marching off. Yeah. So I started on top of Waterloo Street, looking down, all the bars packed, Rocking Chair, Rosie Joe's, and right the whole way down, and the music was banging in the back of your head. And take it back now to what you asked me when I was younger, what it was like. That was pretty much a war zone.
Yeah.
In those days. So here you had the diversity of all the people sitting, having their beer, whatever. Maybe wouldn't be supporters of the parade, but you know what? Hey ho, who cares? Quite happy the parade's going ahead.
Yep.
Not causing any bother, not causing any issue. And I've said to Rory, this is really what it's like. This is the diversity. You know, isn't this wonderful? And he was amazed. He thought it was brilliant. And that's where I want to get to, Stephen. And I think we're getting there.
Yep.
And that's where my focus would be. Working with Billy and Wooly and Graham and others, and working with traders and working with Donoghue and others and all the political parties. This is what really should be about. And we really can trade when there's no fear of violence. If there's no violence, people come to enjoy themselves. We want people who want to come to parade and watch it. They feel as though they can watch it everywhere and have no issue. And we want people in the city who feel as though they want to go and do their shopping. They can still go and do their shopping. There's no issues whatsoever. Few transport issues, by the very nature there's thousands of people about. But other than that, if we can get over the transport issues, hey, again, the city centre is for everybody. And one day it could be about parading, another day it could be about a maritime festival, another day it could be about shopping. But it's about the diversity of all those things together.
Do you think there could be a day then that the parade is celebrated as a tourist attraction and it can attract people from other communities to watch it?
I think there's more and more people from other communities coming and seeing it. I think that unfortunately we're held back sometimes by the politics of this place. I think when politics isn't working, you know, people are more inclined to switch off it because we're seen as divided again. But 2013 for me was the way it should be. You know, you had Flag Cool, one of the bands from the Bands Forum leading the parade in Flag Cool. The parade went off that year, and the Flag Cool started the next day, and no issues whatsoever, and that's what it should be. But what you find sometimes, all the time, is when politics isn't working, people fall back into their silos, and there is, unfortunately, an them and us attitude. Now, see, as long as that's not played out in an angry way, and see, as long as it's not played out to try and stop people doing things, well, we can sort of live with that. It's not where I would like to be, but you know, we can live with it because if people live and let live and let people get on with it, that's one thing. What I would like to see is much more inclusivity, much more, you know, yes, that people do enjoy it much better, that there is a tourism feature to it. But one of the things that helps to amazingly towards that's the Maiden City Festival.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the festival's all weekend and they're all up to it, and you take the Scottish dancing, for argument's sake, it happens every day in the walls. You know, we were used to in the city seeing Irish dancing all the time, and brilliant, it's great, fantastic. It's great to see the Scottish dancing as well, but not everybody would have been exposed to that culture, and that's becoming more and more normal now. You take the walls, like the walls were a barren space when the parades were going on. As soon as the parade around the walls is over, hundreds of tourists walking around again still. So no, it is becoming more and more normal, but I would like to see it even more normal than that. But I don't think that happens in a vacuum. I think if there's political instability, I think it does hamper that as well. You know, and that's just the nature of this place.
Can you tell me a bit about the Maiden City Accord and your involvement in it?
To be fair to the Londonderry Bands Forum, they took up that upon themselves to be authors of that accord, but it was really just building on the work that everybody was already involved in. But actually putting it down as a living document has given a good template for everybody, you know, and everybody can look at that document and go, have we truthfully delivered on what we say in this document? And to be fair to the document, it's you know the way some of these rule books would be written, they're usually written with the author and the author's community or whatever in mind, or whatever community the rules are for. To be fair to the Maiden City Accord, it's almost like a two-sided thing.
Yeah.
You know, this is what's demanded of you, this is what you should do, this is what, but also this is what we expect too, and everything else. And that's what's nice about the Maiden City Accord. You know, it isn't just about this is the way we must behave. It's also about this is what we would expect others to be doing as well. That's what I like about the Maiden City Accord more than anything else, because it puts an onus on others. Now, others may or may not choose to abide by it. Some bands may or may not choose to abide by it. But to be fair to all the players who are involved in all the organisations of the parades and everything else, everybody recognises the Maiden City Accord as almost a template for what goes on.
Yeah.
That's my view of the Maiden City Accord.
Do you feel a sense of pride about the achievements that the city had about the parading issues?
I wouldn't say that. I'll tell you what I would say, and for me, it's the most important aspect of the work I would do here. I think our city centre has come on leaps and bounds because people feel safe in the city centre. Parading days for me, growing up, as we talked about earlier, was always full of violence. So anybody that knows me knows the focus I would put on the parading days, and it's one aspect of the job that, but if anything was going to give you a sleepless night, it would be around the parades to make sure that they go off well and they go off peaceably, that nobody looks for offence, nobody receives offence, that people come enjoy themselves and they leave with a good view of the city and how the city behaves. If I get that over, I'm absolutely over the moon, and that means so much to me, and it's something that I would put an exponential amount of effort into, and it wouldn't matter where, when, what time of day, night, whatever. Something had to be done around the parade to help it. Absolutely, would be 100%, and help the trading around the parade. If it means people taking risks for it, yes, I'd be up for taking risks. If it means getting a bit of a hammering verbally from people over it, I'd be up for taking that as well. Because you know what? I just want people to come to the city centre and enjoy themselves and feeling as though when they're here they're welcome. I want every citizen of the city to feel as though the city centre is theirs. And it's not exclusively, it's not the apprentice boys on Dairy Day, for argument's sake. It's not just the Orange Orders when the 12th of July comes, when they do their main parade in the city. It's for everybody. The city centre is for everybody, and it should be like that. Now, I know not everybody feels the same way as I do on that, but I would work every day and night I could to try and ensure that people feel like that. So pride, probably not the right word. Maybe when I retire, look back and go, that was decent work. But it's more pride in the city. It's more pride in how we treat each other. That's where I get my kicks, if that makes sense, Stephen. I would look upon the work that I do with pride, but you see when the city pulls off a parade well and there's mutual respect. See when that official from the Irish government up and we were up in the Diamond and the bands were going around and you walk 50 yards and they were all the trouble used to be at Butcher Gate, and people are all enjoying themselves and going, happy days. That's what I get pride in. That gives me a great buzz, and I just hope we can do more of that.
The last question then I have for you is that the theme this week is clean starts with us. So people in this city from all communities were definitely part of the change. What do you say about them now, looking back, and also to other areas that maybe have issues around parading and so on?
Well, as you would know, Stephen, I do a bit of work in some of those other areas with the Reverend Harold Good, and sometimes Derry people, when I tell them this story, they think I'm mad. Lots of people in this city, I'm saying we, I don't feel as though I've won, but I will say we've sort of chips on our shoulders about what Belfast gets over us and all the rest of it. But see, when I'm up there working on parades, they're going with me, how do you do it down there? It's brilliant what you do down there. But when you tell other people that, they find that hard to believe, because I think this place is the centre of the universe, not anywhere else. I think a lot of people have taken dairy as a template, and they do understand what I'm saying the earlier on about building relationships. And that's something that, I really want to see all our politicians back in. I want to see an executive formed. I want to see all the issues sorted out. But no one I want to see more than anything else, relationships being built. Because to see if they're all forced back to do it, they don't build those relationships, we'll be back in the same place again at some stage in the future. Getting those relationships built are more important for me. So if I'm ever away talking to anybody about what happens in dairy, it's all about relationships. It's all about how we can talk to each other and respect the diversity that we all have. But those relationships, once they're forged, very hard to break those relationships. And for me, if anybody takes anything away from what we do here, it's about sitting having that cup of tea, sitting having that pint, sitting being able to have that conversation, and just basically going, right, well, how do we sort this out? And if we always can keep doing that, we certainly won't have any issues. If that's the way they approach it elsewhere, I think we'll get their problem solved.
Thank you to Jim Roddy for taking part in this podcast, where we have one more podcast tomorrow at 7:30 for Good Relations Week. Join us then.